Yo, yo.
I'm
However
happy.
you want to be.
I'm happy to be here, man. No, this is kind of cool. It's actually, you caught me at a really good time. Um, when I came down to Florida, I didn't expect, I wasn't going to bring my camera. I wasn't going to bring anything with me. And thank God I did. And I brought
Hmm.
my hard drives and my computer and all my cameras and stuff. And which is good because I've been working actually down here since I've been here, which
Really?
we'll talk about. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm doing a lot of product stuff, being a people photographer isn't so helpful in the middle of COVID. So there goes my business model.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, well, cause my good friend that I'm with, Lauren, she's a entrepreneur, designer. She's got a couple of different companies. She's got a sports company called Signables, and she's got a cannabis lifestyle brand called Stigma and Style. And her dad is a big art collector and has like a gallery down here. And he just was like, hey, why don't you guys, I'm trying to sell all this crap. Can you
Uh-huh.
photograph it and help me sell it? So we've been just shooting a ton of products. She got a couple of her factories to ship us boxes of stuff. So we've just been getting creative with stock footage and stock photos, and just been shooting B-roll and product shots and using that to make these little social commercials and things like that. So we've been keeping busy, or
That's
trying to anyway, to pass the good old time.
that's
So,
cool. That's a
yeah,
good old. Oh
yeah.
man.
But I'm
Or-
lucky that I decided to bring all my stuff because I almost didn't. And I'm so glad. I'm like, Taylor, you've never left your house once without your stuff. Why start now? Because I was only going to come here for 2 days. I was like, oh, I'll just turn right back around. And thank God. So, but I had my hard drive on me, so I had all this stuff. Because when you were asking for pictures and stuff like that, I'm like, if I didn't have my hard drives, I wouldn't. You'd have been having to screenshot my site.
No, that's what I had to do for Rob stuff. It was just like kind of
Yeah,
like last minute. Like I was like, oh, I might as well just go ahead and throw some pictures up here too, and
yeah,
that really cool to throw some of his work up like as we're
yeah.
talking
It's
about
good.
it.
I feel like they're good. I mean, I enjoy the visual podcast aspect of it, and when people start to kind of mix in the things, it's like because they're long. I mean, podcasts are long; they're at least an hour. So
It
something
needs to
else to
be.
look at. Oh, maybe it's better if I turn it a little bit towards the window. Gee, I'm a photographer. I should know these things.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's.
geez.
I was trying
Oh,
like
this
the
is
last one
much
with.
better. Oh, especially with this weird painting behind you. This is
Oh
perfect.
yes,
Yeah, you like
the
that? You like
Florida home on the other side and this peacock
Florida
lady.
home, peacock lady. Me. This is good. This is really good.
So let's start off with talking a little bit about yourself.
Talking about myself. Okay, what do you want to know?
Whoa.
Let's see. So I started photography when I was 13 years old. I grew up in a household of freelance and creators, very like creative people. So my dad, both my parents work in film. My dad is a screenwriter. My mom's an executive producer. So I grew up in a very supportive, artistic freelance home, which I'm very, very grateful for. And when I was about 13, I grew up in California. My dad didn't want me smoking pot on the beach with a bunch of other randos. So he was like, go pick something to do. And there was a local college, Santa Monica City College. They had a couple of photography classes. And I went, oh yeah, I'll do that. Cause then I don't have to read a book or do anything like that. I don't have to write anything. So just take pictures all day. That sounds easy. So that's what I did. And I fell in love with it. And I went back every summer and, did it all throughout high school and college. I went to Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara, which was like military school for photography. It was an amazing school, like really hammered in the technical aspects of photography to us. And when I was younger in high school, I was assisting a couple different photographers that I had met in LA, and I started working when I was 14 and assisting, and a couple of celebrity portrait photographers out there, Sean Frederick, Richard Wright. Those guys really just they taught me set etiquette and how to compose an image and what to do on set. And, I also learned a lot of the technical aspects of photography from both of those guys as well, because they really, they hammer it in you when you're on set. So I was like the third or fourth assistant, I think, on set. So I was the grunt. So they just like, you know, had me do everything, which was great. It just kind of taught me the whole aspects of how things should run. And then I went to college in Brooks Institute. That was fantastic school. I was there for about a year and a half. Then I transferred to New York, and that's because I've always wanted to be there. And that's when I got into School of Visual Arts, and I just finished out there, created my portfolio there. I had a really cool mentor when I was there, a woman. Her name was Nadia Vellum, and she worked for W Magazine as an editor. And she made me redo my portfolio about 1,000 times before I got it right. But she gave me the best. She asked me the one question that I didn't, you know, expect to get asked. Because, you know, when I went to school in Santa Barbara, it was a commercial school. It was a commercial technical school. So they were like, do your, you know, pick the photographers that you, it's the word I'm looking for, that you admire or you would want work to look like, or, you know, pick somebody that you want to be, basically, and go emulate that work, and then find them and assist them, and, you know, for 10 years, and then maybe you'll get lucky enough to touch camera. But that was like legitimately that was the formula that a lot of people followed. Yeah. So when I got to New York, she was like, you know, these are technically beautiful images and I can see your influences, but I don't see you anywhere here. And she said, you have no purpose picking up a camera if you don't know what you want to say or what you want to do. So, you know, so she binned it like 4 times.
It's good to have people like that, for sure.
It was really good, because it really made me think, okay, what do I like? You know, it was like, she was the first person to say, like, what do you like? I'm like, what does that mean? What do I like?
Do you find that to be an issue when it comes to being so technically driven as a photographer? Because I've seen a fair amount of people kind of just care about the shot rather than kind of like the essence of the shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for other people, but for myself, you know, I think that school drilled in me the business aspects of it, which I'm grateful for, because I know, you know, that doesn't always come easy to a lot of artists, is that side of the brain. So, you know, I think at some point there's a lot of ringing going on.
It's the peacock lady's cell phone.
It's her phone, it's her iPad. She's waiting to FaceTime later. But yeah, I would say for myself, you know, it's just, it's important to figure out who you are and what you want. And that takes that takes a lot of time for a lot of people. I mean, once I kind of nailed down, even though I knew from a very young age what I wanted to do, that's evolved and changed 75,000 times. It was like, I came to New York because I wanted to be a, you know, fashion photographer. I wanted to be the Mario Testinos and Ellen von Unwerths and Pamela Hansons. You know, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to be. And then my life just completely took a very sharp turn once I got out of school, or actually while I was in school at SVA, I interned for a couple different photographers. I worked for this photographer, Garance Doré. I helped build up her studio in New York when she started, and I started doing a lot of video work for her. So I started learning multimedia from her, which was good. I got kind of a crash course in that, and started doing videos of all the fashion shows in New York, Milan, Paris, all that kind of stuff. And that was like, you know, we were working around the clock. I mean, we went to probably 6 or 7 shows a day. You needed a video for every single one. I probably was getting like 2-3 hours of sleep a night. And but it was great because it was just kind of crammed all this information. And then it kind of helped me find, that's like compositionally, I would say. And, you know, I think I became a better photographer when I started working with video, because I started to see narrative and story a little bit differently, and I got to explore that. So that I think helped. And then I was interning for her, and then I was also interning for Ken Regan who's a big photojournalist guy. And he shot for Sports Illustrated for years and Time, Newsweek, and Entertainment Weekly and all that stuff. And he was a big music guy. So he was the main photographer for the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Beatles, all that kind of stuff. So I met him while I was in school as well. I was simultaneously working for Garance and for Ken. And Ken, so that's really distracting.
It's all good.
It just keeps going. But anyhow, I started working for Ken while I was in school, interning for him at his studio. I was just surrounded by photojournalism, which really, that's when I think everything took a turn. It's all I wanted to do was fashion. And then once I saw his archive, because I worked for him for about 5-6 years. My job was an assistant studio manager, his first assistant. So whatever, he needed, he'd take me on shoots, and then I'd work in the office, and I ran his archives and, learned gallery, I managed all of his gallery work, and it just taught me all these different aspects of photography and the business side of things as well. But I was surrounded by all this journalism and all this music and that kind of documentary influence. I think that's when it really kind of changed everything for me. That's when I really felt like I started finding my voice, if you will, a little bit, or at least what I know I can do well. I definitely, there's thousands of photographers and filmmakers out there that are 10 million times better than me, but at least I feel like I feel more confident behind a camera, I think right now than I ever have in the 18, 19 years I've been doing this. So, and I think a lot of that just has to do with growth and time and personal change and working with so many different people and different experiences. And yeah, so he was a big influence. For sure. And then after him, anyway, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. I want you to finish. You're on a roll.
After I'm on a roll, man. After I got like a Tom Petty song playing in my head. Big influence. After that, I went to, so let's see. Well, yeah, now it gets kind of morbid. He died and I was out of a job. And I got a call from Chad Carlson, who I actually went to college with in Santa Barbara at Brooks Institute. And he was like, "Hey man, I moved to New York. What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm at a bar. It's 11 a.m. and I don't have a job and I don't know what to do and I don't know where to go. And he was like, "Listen," he's like, "I'm in Brooklyn. I'm at the Yard, like one of those WeWork kind of places." And he said, why don't you come through? He's like, because I didn't have anything. When I didn't have my own gear, I had nothing. Everything I had was through Ken's studio. So I didn't have anything of my own. No money, no job, no camera, nothing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a professional photographer in New York and I don't even own my own camera. This is going well. And so Chad brought me along, and he just gave me some work and he lent me some cameras, and he actually got me my job at Sports Illustrated. And he was like, "Listen, it's a shit job. It's 2 days a week. You're working in the basement. You're going to be processing drives. You're going to be a photo technician." I was like, "That's a really bad idea." I'm like, I technically, like, my brain doesn't work that way. I mean, he and Eric Rasco, who's my former immediate boss that I worked with, those two I worked with very closely for 6 years. But Eric and Chad, you could blindfold those guys and they could rewire a frickin' skyscraper. I mean, they're just like technically so crazy smart. And that's not, I'm way more creative and production oriented, but that technical side was really difficult for me. So they gave me the job. I sucked at it. I got yelled at probably 15 times a day. And it was rough. For the first 6 months, I was like, I called my dad. I was crying. I'm like, I want to quit. I can't do this. He was like, "Listen," he's like, do not, there's going to be something there. Stick it out, see what it transpires into. Just don't give up just yet. And thank God I didn't. 6 years later, I, was one of their main photographers and shot for the main mag and for Swimsuit. And, I had everyone from Eric Rasco to Marguerite Schropp to Chris Stone, Chris Hersick, MJ, MJ Day, all those guys, they really, they really groomed me and gave me just all this opportunity to shoot the athletes and the swimsuit models. And that's kind of where my career started developing. And I started getting freelance work outside of SI, and they were kind enough to not only give me a staff job, but they let me do my freelance work, mainly because it wasn't with ESPN. So they were like, well, it's not a competitor, so you can do your own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but it was, it was great. I mean, it was, I just, I worked my ass off for 6 years and just hustled and maintained a normal job and a freelance job, which, as we all know, is a full-time job. And all this social stuff now, keeping up with that and everything else, it just kind of piles on and can make you go absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But so far so good.
Yeah. I think you, the way that you're talking about that process of working for SI and trying to, I almost want to take it to a place of building trust with them in a way, because we get so impatient. I know, like, I'm in that same kind of boat right now where, you assist and you do all these different things for people, and you're just kind of like, when is it gonna kind of happen? Like, you kind of,
click.
yeah. And
Yeah. I mean, that was, to be honest with you, that was, I mean, up until very recently for me. I mean, I opened up my own LLC in 2018. I went fully freelance when I was in this round of layoffs for Sports Illustrated. So, but that kind of put a fire under my ass to get me to be completely on my own. So for the last 7 months, 8 months, something like that, I've been fully on my own, which, especially during COVID, is scary as all get out. But,
yeah.
but it's, you just kind of, after a while, you just, all that training and assisting and creating and hustling and moving things around, I think it gives you a certain, even if you don't feel it, it gives you a sense of, there's an internal confidence that sort of takes over, and you're just sort of like, yeah, okay, I can do this. I know how to do it. I can do this. This is, I know what I'm doing. And it's really applying, I think, all of the skill sets that you do for everybody else, just turning that around on yourself, which is what, we're all working towards, right? That's what we all want. But getting the actual opportunity to do that, I think when it happens, at least for me, I feel, when it happened that way just recently, the first feeling I felt was this massive amount of responsibility. And I think my biggest fear was, am I going to be disciplined enough to do this? Am I going to have enough resources to figure all this out? Am I going to have the financial, backing that I need to do X, Y, and Z? And somehow, some way, something just takes over, and you just sort of, it's like radical acceptance, and you're like, yep, okay, here we go. We're going to do this. Like, we've wung everything else. We're just going to wing this one and see how it goes. But there is a massive amount of responsibility, I think, that kind of floods over you. And that does bleed into this feeling of confidence and sureness in the skill sets that you've been developing for a long time, even with other people. You just kind of go, okay, now I'm in the hot seat. I got to take everything I've learned and I'm going to apply it to myself.
Is your phone dinging, by the way?
It is. Is it annoying as shit? I'm so sorry. Should I just turn this thing off?
Yeah,
I don't know. You know what it is because it dings on now my text messages come through on my laptop. So it's like, ding. All right. If I shut this off, shut the phone down.
It's all good. Thank
Sound.
you. It's okay.
If they still come through, I don't know what to tell you.
No, it's fine. We'll work
Maybe
through it.
My phone's off. I don't know.
It's all good. I think it's really cool to hear that, in the way that you have adapted after. You said that you were in that first round of layoffs with Sports Illustrated. Is that what you said?
This last round of layoffs,
oh, okay.
The ones that happened in October. I survived a couple of them, but over the last 6 years, there's been a couple. But this one was the really big one where they because the company was sold again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a large group of people, I think almost like 50% of us, 40% of us, something like that. So I was in the big one,
Mm-hmm.
this past October in 2019.
So what skill set do you feel like you attribute to yourself that kind of separates you from, someone that might not be able to make it out of such a layoff or anything like that? Like your approach to doing video as well as photo.
Mm-hmm.
I think like we've talked about this before is pretty big when it comes to a lot of branded work, because they want both photo and video, and a lot of people don't really offer both.
Yeah, I mean, to that, I just told myself, you know what? I actually have to give that credit to to School of Visual Arts, SVA. Nadia Velen. She was the first one to tell me to get into video. She said my photos looked like film stills.
Mm.
She said, I think you'd be a really good videographer. And she said, mark my words, in the next year, it's going multimedia. If you don't get on board, you're going to fall behind and you won't get as much work. In fact, you might not get work. And so I took that advice, and that's when I was approached that's when I met Garant Story and started doing video and stuff for her. But yeah, I mean, it's scary because I think being in a younger generation, right, we have an advantage. Having this technology is something that we were raised in, so it comes sort of second nature to us. We're not scared to adapt, because it's something we're used to. But I know like a lot of my colleagues and photographers that have 20 years on me, it's a big adjustment. And I've seen, regardless of age, I've seen many people adjust really well, and I've seen people that don't adjust very well. I think it just sort of depends on.
Do you feel like it's an ego thing?
No, I don't know. I mean, I guess in the sense of, I see what you mean. I mean, I guess in the sense of ego, maybe being
I'm a
scared,
photographer.
or yeah, I'm a photographer, or I'm scared. This is a new medium. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to, I don't want to rely on myself this way. Maybe there's an element of that. But I don't know, because I'm not there. So I wouldn't really know what that feels like. Although I kind of saw Ken go through it, when I was working for him. He adjusted really well because he had a lot of people adjusting with and for him. So we were kind of forcing him. We were like, you got to get into this. You got to figure, but he stayed up to date with all the new improved stuff. And, again, I think it's also, I think it just depends on your personality. So you're either going to adjust well to change and the unknown and the risk aspects of certain things, or you're not. I mean, it is kind of sink or swim. You're either going to adjust and you're going to survive and you'll swim and you'll be okay. And if you don't adjust, then yeah, you might fall behind and you might not get as much work. And that's just the reality of it. So for me personally, I was just like, well, I got to figure out how to do this. Cause there's no way I'm going to get work solely, enough work solely as just a photographer. For me, I think for what I'm capable of doing, I don't think it's enough. And in fact, I think I'm better at video, to be honest. I mean, I love photography and I like what I do some of the times. But video, I love being a storyteller. That's what I like. I like telling stories. I like, documentary aspects of things. I like when, I like those unknown risks. I enjoy that very much. I find that my skill set, and I attribute this to Sports Illustrated, my skill set is adapting to the chaos and to the unknown and making something out of that. Because, when you're working with athletes, you have, as you well know, I mean, you have about 30 seconds to get your picture, or you're given 2 minutes to make a cover, or, you have 1 hour to shoot an entire spread. I mean, and video and, Facebook Live and Instagram Live and social, and, 5 people want to get in there and, get their articles and get their stories. And then you're having to compromise with the writers and everything else. And it's it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot to cram into a short amount of time. So that really felt like training for me, you know, to just get in there and get it done and be quick about it. And you kind of, because I feel like it's so, you don't have any time and there's so much pressure, it's like your instinct just takes over and you kind of shut your brain off. You don't really have time to think about anything. So I feel like I really learned how to do that well there, and it served me as I continue. So, and I find myself, you know, using that skill set every day. I mean, even now, it's like, here we are, COVID, I shoot people for a living and there goes my business model. So I'm now, you know, having to shoot products and things like that, which I am, by the way, I just found out I am such an impatient person. Holy crap. Like, I am not patient. With product, you have to be so patient and diligent with the details. That is so not me. Like, it is just, because I'm used to having everything be free flowing and candid and creating within that space. So having something that is all my control, I'm like, I can't do it. It's so frustrating. Like, I'll do like 4 hours. Like, we were just shooting for 4 hours the other day and I was like, that's it. We're done. Can't do anymore. I'm like, but put me on a shoot with people for 16 hours, 20 hours, won't complain once. Like, it's just weird.
Yeah, it's a weird time to have to adapt to things that you're just kind of not really used to, or you don't really find yourself doing. I just recently had to do a product shoot too, and I was the same way. I was just like, you know, like it's going to help pay the bills and stuff like that. So get over it.
It's
and
so annoying, right?
Yeah, it can be it's very, very tedious to me. Like,
So tedious. Some people really love it. Like, I know Chad. Have you ever met Chad Carlson?
Mm-mm.
He loves that shit, but I think he loves it because he don't like people. He's like, I don't like people. I'm like, okay, whatever.
I can see that definitely be a thing that works for people that don't like people, because they don't have to talk to anything. It's just me and this shirt.
Oh yeah, Eric's the same way too. Eric Rasco.
I can see that.
He's like product. He's like, I love it. He's like, don't give me people. Don't give them to me.
I can see that though.
But they're so good at it. That's what drives me crazy. I'm like, but you don't like this, but you're so good.
Yeah.
Take my job.
Going back to when you were talking about finding your voice, coming out of this, you know, technical mindset and figuring out who you were, what was the first job or first shoot that you had that you were like, oh, this is meant to be for me?
First job. Well, the one that sticks out, first instinct, is the In Her Own Words that I did for Swimsuit. That was really cool. And I wouldn't say that was more my voice, that was their voices, which was cool. So for anyone that doesn't know what it is, it was the first no swimsuit, black and white, all-female project created for SI Swimsuit. And that broke the 54-year history of the magazine. They'd never done anything like that before. And I worked closely with the swim team on it. And of course, you know, it just, we had a really cool crew. I mean, we had, you know, the swimsuit models that, well, first of all, the whole premise of the project was about them becoming their own art directors. So I wanted them to be a part of selecting their photos and creating the photos with me. So initially, the whole thing kind of started out where I just was screwing around in a studio one day and I was bored out of my mind. And I called up a couple of the girls that I have a good friendship with. And I just said, you want to just screw around in the studio? And then my really good friend Jamie, who's a stylist, she showed up and she was like, why don't we do words, like words on the body? Because I wanted to do nudes. That's what because I had never shot nudes before. So I wanted to explore that a little bit and just see like what would happen or what would come out of it. And then Jamie suggested words. And then I was with Robin Lawley and she was like, oh my God, we need to do video. We could turn it into a whole thing. So it just kind of, everybody added an element and it just started kind of building into its own thing. And slowly but surely it just kind of became this unexpected piece, and I presented it to MJ Day, and who's the editor-in-chief of Swimsuit, and she took it to a whole other level. She named it and sold it and got it out there and just said, we're doing this. And she gave us 14 pages in the magazine, which was incredible. Wow. And we did like a 10-minute film with it. And it came that we actually got that. We did a shorter 2-minute off a 10-minute piece that got into Cannes Lions for the advertising section, which Chris Hersick and his team that were working at the Foundry, they got us in there for that. So it was really cool. There were just all these bits and pieces that started to build, and it was really, really, it was an incredible project. And my favorite part was that, you know, the girls, so the whole project became them picking words that positively represented who they were. They chose the placement of those words and what messages they wanted to create. And we did really moving interviews. This project took a year to make. And I was in the studio for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours working on this thing. And I watched these women it was like therapy sessions. You know, I would watch them, you know, we would one whole day. It wasn't like an hour shoot a girl. It was like the girl would come in and we would spend the entire day and we would think about it and pace around the studio and, you know, might I add, horrible body drawings to try to figure out where they wanted the words to be placed and what messages they wanted to create. And they really thought about it. And it was just cool to kind of watch them go through that process. So I feel like I learned from them. I feel like for me, that whole experience, and it was a massive, huge, giant collaboration with so many people, that experience taught me to have a little more courage to stand in your truth. And, you know, that was a really amazing conversation. Paulina Porskova, who was in the project, she came in and she was like, I only have one word. And most people were, you know, covered or picking multiple. And I was like, well, how are we going to do this? I initially sort of like rejected the idea. Cause I was like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to, how are we going to cover you with just one word? And she was like, fuck it, put it right across my boobs. True. So we just drew it in so you couldn't really see anything. And I took a photo of it on my phone and sent it to MJ. And I'm like, can we get away with this? And she was like, green light, go for it. So it ended up being like some of my favorite, one of my favorite photos from the series, just because of the conversation that was attached to it. And I asked her, I said, why one word? Why that word? And she said, well, doesn't it kind of just represent everything? You know, standing in your truth is what you know, she's like 54 years on this planet. That was how, you know, her age at the time, she just said 54 years on this planet, you know, standing in your truth is the hardest thing to do. And I'm still learning how to do it, you know? And it was just kind of a quick, powerful moment. And that, I think, you know, again, it was just me learning from everybody else through the experience. So, and, you know, having Allie Raisman and, you know, her stepping into herself as a survivor after everything she had gone through and being, you know, so open to talking about that. And you had these, you know, just everybody brought such an incredible element. There were 10 women in it. So they all remain very special people that it'll always be that thing that I'm like, yeah, that made a big difference. That was just a turning point for me in my own career. Personally, I started after that project, I started exploring writing, and doing different things that were sort of just different and outside of what I've normally done. So I think that period of time definitely influenced me in big ways. So definitely changed kind of how I think about, you know, what I do or how to tell a story or all that good stuff.
I've seen quite a bit of stuff from that project, and I'll try to do my best to link like the film and everything in the YouTube channel and stuff like that.
I should have sent you I can send you the 10-minute piece is locked in, I think on their Sports Illustrated channel, but I can get you the the 2-minute piece that we submitted, and it's a nice little Axis sort of a trailer, but it's a nice little diddly.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely try to put that in the description on the YouTube stuff so people can check it out.
I forgot to send that one to you, so I can send
it's all good.
So you have.
Thank you. And kind of diving into, I think it's kind of similar. We've discussed this a little bit, but I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into. So you're having this experience, working for Sports Illustrated. It's a big sports publication, and then you have this kind of you're intertwining fashion and fine art into this world that's more. It's kind of always been just this action oriented type publication. What's it like for yourself being a woman in such a kind of like male dominated realm or genre of photography?
Oh, I think it's fun. I enjoy it. I think like anything, it's even when you're inside of it, I think gender, for me anyway, my experience was, gender disappeared sometimes, and then there were other times which it was rare. It was very rare that, like, I was shooting and I had a shoot where an athlete mistaked the guy that was assisting me for the photographer, and it was just kind of this like funny little moment where he was like, no sir, she's shooting. And he was like, oh damn. I was like, yeah, me, woman, I don't know. But that was like I never experienced it. It popped up, and it not only happened with him, but actually on an advertising shoot, I had showed up to a location, and the woman who was the host of the location, it was a woman that was like, oh, is the photographer gonna be here anytime soon? I'm like, you're looking at her. She was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, it's okay, like it's all good.
Yeah.
But I guess I ignore it because I'm not thinking of myself as a woman trying to break into sports. I see myself as a person that has a skill set and will do nothing to stop to getting to the place that I know I need to go, that I feel has kind of been a part of my purpose. So I don't really see gender in that aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of dudes, but I never felt anyone I worked with at Sports Illustrated, all the guys that I worked with, they never made me, there was, again, the gender thing just kind of disappeared. And we had a ton of women working for Sports Illustrated. I mean, a lot. There were plenty of amazing female photographers out there. And a good buddy of mine, Liz Kreutz, who's, she's like the main photographer for Lance Armstrong, and she does a whole bunch of, way more active type things than I did, because I never did the game action side of things, mainly because I suck at it. I'm really terrible. It's like I had Eric, my boss, and he, would put me on assignments, and he's like, I want you to try action, but we don't know how well this is gonna go. And I just, the portrait aspect of things, the documentary, the lifestyle around the sports is sort of where I just kind of created my own little niche and got comfortable, and I just sort of kept doing it because that's what I just, got good at. But yeah, it's kind of the few attempts I've done to try to shoot some kind of a game action scenario, not so good. It's almost like I forgot how to be a photographer. It's actually kind of funny. I should try to find like some of my first photos and like make a reel out of it. I mean, like, game action photographer, sports.
That's funny. Like, I've had that sometimes where, definitely back when I first started, I was more familiar with portraits and like fashion stuff, but I'd have Kevin look through my work and he'd be like, your action stuff is kind of not there, but this portrait stuff though, you need to really keep going after that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, it makes you feel so defeated, but at the same time, you're kind of like, No, but like I have my thing that I know I can do, and that's good. But
Right.
oh, that's right. How long have you worked for Kevin?
We've worked together for about 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Why did I think longer than that? I thought maybe
And
more.
it feels longer than that. Like
Feels
it,
longer than that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
really
Because I feel like
has.
every time I talk to him, I talk to you. So I was like, but then again, I feel like I had the phone permanently attached to my face while I was there working with all those photographers,
Mm, yeah.
setting up shoots and doing all the transmission. Some photographers, man, they just can't transmit.
Yeah. I think that's
It's so
definitely a
fun.
big learning curve right there.
Oh man, that alone was like a big, but had I didn't have, if I didn't have Eric and Chad beating it into me, I wouldn't, I would have been just as aloof as they were with the whole thing. I'd have been like, what is this? I don't
Hmm.
know how to do this. What's an FTP? I don't get it.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know how to download.
a lot of social media teams are like, having to use things like that now. So
Yeah,
hopefully it's.
now it's almost a requirement. I mean,
Mhm.
everyone has to sort of operate that way. I think now that was the thing. I feel like we always had a very complicated system compared to other people. Like we always did. But I think it's because we were the only few that I think we were the only publication that was still using RAWs for images. We were requesting RAWs. Most publications, to my recollection and knowledge, it was like they would just retouch their own pictures, make their own selections, and then send in the high-res JPEGs, and that was it, But for us, we wanted to see the entire take. We had editors to edit it ourselves. Our imaging department needed the RAWs, so we kind of operated in a more traditional sense that way, where a lot of people, I think, weren't doing that. So, yeah, we took up a lot of storage. That's for sure. On many a cloud, whatever that means.
Certain people take up certain amount of storage because it's, all the people that shoot.
For photographers I know
Yeah.
that like, and I'm one of them, man. Like my takes are huge. Like I'll come, I would give, I would make fun of some photographers for that. And to them, like not
Hmm.
telling tales out of school, but like I had like a couple of photographers where I'm like, Jesus, I'm like, what, how do you have this many photos? And then I'll do the same thing. Like I'll go
Hmm.
on a job, I'll be downloading my stuff, I'll be starting to make selects, and I'm like, Taylor, why did you shoot 6,000 frames? We didn't need this much. Like, it's just like,
Yeah, covering
oh,
your ass is what it is. That's
it
a good
is.
thing.
But that's the thing. I think because I'm so used to shooting, I'm used to having such a small amount of time that I just kind of lean on that shutter because I'm like, one of them's in focus, I think. I hope. Because if not, I'm screwed.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
I
not
couldn't
a big
imagine missing. Oh man, I haven't had that chance yet, but I wouldn't want to make
job.
anybody like Eric mad.
Oh yeah, no. Mm-mm. You don't want to make him mad. I've done it many a time. It's not fun. But you know what though? I mean, I've done all that kind of stupid stuff. I mean, I format a camera right after I shot an entire.
Ooh, I've done
Oh
that.
yeah. I've
Hmm.
done like some pretty idiotic blonde moments for sure.
But we had to tell ourselves like it's part of the learning process.
It's part of it. It's part of the learning process.
Mistakes.
Like,
But yeah, I do want to kind of harp on talk about your personal work. Is there anything personally that you've worked on outside of the SI swim thing that you
yeah.
kind of want to talk about?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've always gotten this, there's always been this thing of your work and your personal work are two separate things. And
Hmm.
for the longest time, I never really had that. I was like, I don't understand what people mean by that.
Yeah,
I'm like, because I feel like anything that I'm doing, I'm putting
yourself into.
myself into.
Yeah.
So, and I'm happy with it. So that, I mean, but I guess writing has been a big thing for me. Really, that's been personal works. I'm working on writing a couple of scripts, so that's been kind of a fun and entertaining um, challenging and exciting thing for me. Partnering up with my dad, who's a screenwriter, so he's kind of been teaching me the ropes. So I've just been exploring kind of a new medium. So I've been doing that, and um, you know, I guess recently actually met this guy, Dixon McDonald, very recently, who quit his job to become an extreme athlete. And him and his buddies are doing a huge row, like an actual row in a rowboat across the Atlantic. So I've been kind of working with him on potentially creating a documentary for that. And
That sounds badass.
yeah, it's, I think when things sort of present itself, if an idea comes along, I guess the personal work falls into what can I do to creatively keep myself busy. A lot of it even just becomes, let me look through the last 10 years of work I've done and re-edit something, remake my reel, look back in old photos and see what, now I've obviously had time to do that. So I guess my personal work is just revamping old stuff, making it look different, new, exploring that. I'm shooting, not, the product stuff is, I guess more work related, but at the same time, it's still honing in on a new skill, I guess. So I think for me, it's like, I don't have one personal project. I would say like, oh, nobody knows this, but I'm a landscape photographer and I'm secretly Ansel Adams. Like, I don't have that skill set.
Uh-huh.
So in fact, I actually tried the other day, one of my good buddies, he wanted a landscape photo for for his brand. And I went out and tried to shoot it. And I was like, that is the worst photo I've ever taken in my life. So like, I don't like, so when it comes, like, I wish I was that like fine art personal photographer. I'm just not. I mean, it comes out, I would say, in video and exploring editing and writing in different ways. But and there might just be like portrait series I did for SI. We, that kind of turned into an ongoing personal project. And then it always, sometimes it's just something really simple that just kind of ends up being, oh, let me make more stuff like this, because why not? So I guess that would be, to answer your question.
Yeah.
Do you have personal work? Do you like, what do you do? Are you one of those like awesome fine art secret that like you're just brilliant at commercial and then you turn around, you're like, whoa.
Oh man, no. I did fine art in school because my degree was in fine art. But learning a lot from Kevin, like I started assisting him pretty much right out of school, so I fell into sports. But then I fell back into, as soon as I got a studio back in January, getting back into doing more like portrait work and fashion work, which I enjoy doing. I love being in the studio space and the lighting. But as far as personal projects, I'm starting to find that I'm not so much a shooter in the sense of like going out and shooting something and then printing it out and saying this is a personal project. I've found myself like doing things like this, like having conversations with people more. And I found found the concept of therapeutic photography recently, which has been a very, what's that?
Therapeutic photography? Tell me about that. What's that?
It's been a thing that a lot of social workers and psychologists have used in their practice to help with like clients that don't really communicate very well, that like they have a hard time opening up, and they use it as a means to like give them the control to show what's going on inside their minds. And they'll discuss their work and how it relates to what's happening in their current state.
Wow.
Yeah. And I started working with a couple people in that way, and it's made me feel better about what I do, because I kind of leaned into like, I'm that person that I used to be that person that was so like, if you're a photographer, you're really good at taking pictures and you're working towards being a professional. But now it's like, I see the benefit of owning a camera just to capture stuff that's just meaningful. Like there's no purpose other than just keeping it to yourself and using that to make yourself feel better.
Well, but it's also, I mean, it's helping people, right, too. I mean, that's the big aspect of what you're talking about. I mean, I think for me too, that's sort of why, you kind of have to remind. So I recently, now you got me thinking about like other random stuff that I do to, I guess as a personal project. So I actually started improv.
Yes,
I randomly did stand up a couple of times, like 4 or 5 times in the city. By the way, scariest ever. Scariest. Because that's hands down to all those stand-up comedians, man. My cousin's actually a really good one. And works and he's incredible, but but that guy puts in 10,000 hours. I mean, for sure. He's incredible at it. But I did it a couple of times, I guess, to self-shock. Am I still in there? And then I got into UCB and I started taking classes at UCB for improv, and it was the most helpful thing. And I've always kind of been encouraged by some of my friends and said, you're really good at this and you're funny and you should explore this avenue and whatever. You can never hear that enough when someone calls you funny. I think it's like the best compliment in the whole world. But I loved, so that was a really big exploratory type thing. And that kind of linked into my writing and finding that what I really want to do is direct and make films and tell stories. And that's what I want to do. I think the photography piece will always be there, but there's so many other things, like you're saying, it's, you start out kind of doing this thing and becoming a professional photographer and then it ends up transferring into 50 million different things. And I think a big part has to do with the fact that we have the ability to do those things very easily because of technology, and the fact that we can do video and we can self-record podcasts and we can, you don't even need a website maker, it's like at one point, I think that was like a thing. Now, because I remember that being in school where we had actually, there was a dedicated class to like learning how to make websites for people. And, it's like you can be so self-sufficient with all these forms of multimedia now that I think it's that convenience just allows you to explore in all these really cool ways. So yeah, I mean, doing the stand-up thing is great because it's just really fun. And I love to make people laugh, and I love to bring joy any way that I can, and, tell stories and bring awareness to things. And, hopefully with always a little bit of a comedic undertone, the writing anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think that's that greater aspect of, when you're figuring out what you want to do and what your voice is and all those things, for me, it's like you get into this kind of field because it's a privilege to be in a position to be a storyteller and in any form of that aspect of it. So it's a privilege. And I think to be able to just being able to help people and bring to light something within them they want to tell or explore or share. So that's kind of a really simple thing, but that is, a big part of what, and the therapeutic thing, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I want to take pictures of my brain soon.
It's been an interesting, like I've brought it up to quite a few people in photo, and my aunt, who is a social worker, and it's been like, they're like, what? That's a thing? I'm like, yeah, so cool. It is. Yeah.
That is I want to learn more about this. You should do a podcast straight up on this thing and explain how it works and what, like, because I could talk about this for.
I have some ideas that you and I can talk about after this that I have in mind for other things. Yeah. But there's one.
Yeah. I mean, how does it, like, what, okay. So just like briefly, like explain, like, what is it like someone actually taking pictures of your brain, or are they just
no.
taking, what is it?
So I've
like picture my camera going.
it's
Yeah.
for
You're like,
me.
ooh, that
That's
was way off.
there's oh,
Okay.
I'll teach you. So it's from my understanding, from my research, it's a process. So you start off, how I approach it, I start off with letting the person know that they have free reign. Like, we're going to take this week to take pictures of whatever you like. You can edit them anything, however you like, using you can use your phone, you can use an actual camera. I
All
want
right.
to see your decision making. I want to see, I just want to take it all in. And then we slowly, every week, we'll meet up, and the challenges get a little bit harder and harder. I try to find consistencies, and you'd be surprised to see these things that just kind of happen.
I feel like you should, I want to have an experiment. I want to do this.
Yeah, we can work together on it.
That would
Yeah.
be really cool. I
Yeah.
would really want to explore that.
So like one thing that maybe you can do, and anybody out there listening wants to do, is there's a project there's a challenge that I've had some of the people I've been working with do that kind of fits your criteria, where I have them take a picture of either themselves or kind of the topic that we're kind of sitting on at the moment. And then I introduce writing onto it. So they print it out and then they write over the image, or they kind of use the whole, frame as their canvas to write about, what's going on when they took the photo. And I've seen some like people who just kind of, let's say, have everyday jobs use that, and it's so cool to see what they come up with. Like,
very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah. I would think that would be a really, that would be really interesting. And it's also too, it's just seeing how someone's brain works and what they choose to focus on, that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, it comes from like, from the beginning, I've always felt like I liked having the conversations with people, and you kind of start to have this sixth sense with people that you work with more and more. That you like. I remember sitting with a friend of mine, and we're shooting together, just having a casual fun shoot, and something was bothering her, and I was like, I could tell something was just different this time.
Yeah.
And after our shoot, we talked, and she definitely had something going on that we both kind of had a long conversation about. And it was just that feeling of like, I wouldn't be able to have this open conversation with her if I didn't have this tool. So yeah, I
very cool.
Yeah, but love to see if you want to try the challenge that I did.
Yeah, I'm like, what? I don't know what'll come out, but
I trust. At this point, you can't surprise me. It's wonderful to see like this complete random.
Oh, I bet you
creativity.
I can. No,
it's just a white sheet. I'm like, huh.
I'm a blank canvas. Trying to explore my insides. Wipe myself clean.
But before we end, I want to ask you the question that I ask everybody. What's something in your career, your creative life, that you've introduced into your like everyday life?
That's a good question. Let's see. Something that I use in my creative life that I use in my daily life.
It's something that you've picked up throughout your career that you've implemented into your everyday life.
Sure. I mean, I would just say like being a human being, man. I mean, no, legit. Like I would probably say the things that I've learned in business, how to connect with people. Here's a good one. The one thing I think that I've found to be a really nice skill set that I've honed in on too, I think is, when I've had to shoot, athletes or these supermodels or whatever, or celebrities, or, you have kind of a short window to make them comfortable. So I think anybody that knows me is that if they know they're always asking my sign, and I'm like, oh, no. They're like, oh, you have multiple personalities. And I have like a very multi-personality chameleon piece in me. And that's been really helpful with my photography, because I can adapt to my subjects and become like them, I would say, in some ways, or at least make them feel comfortable enough, relate to them, just kind of quickly get on their frequency, if you will. And so I think that being able to connect with people, and I think with, just in my whole career, it's like I've just gotten to meet such interesting people and people from all walks of life. So it's kind of this kind of ever exchanging thing, right? Like what I do to get somebody comfortable before I photograph them or do video or whatever is kind of what I do in, talking to you or talking to anybody. You know what I mean? I guess that, does that make any sense?
No, it makes sense.
I don't know. Yeah.
Coming from doing the same thing that you do in some circumstances, it is hard to, adjust to the different types of personalities that you're shooting with, and you have the ability to adjust rapidly to these different personalities.
Yeah, I think the ability to adjust to chaotic and unknown risky situations has just kind of been a helpful tool in life. And, I can adapt to my environment very well, and vice versa is true. I do that in my personal life, and I think that's what helps my photography, and helps my photography helps me as a person. So I would say it's kind of an exchange, a nice little exchange.
Yeah.
So
no, I think
what do people say to that question? Is there anything really specific?
No, not really. I think it's just there's always
Let me copy their answer so it makes sense.
Which personality do you want to be today?
Exactly. I don't want to have my own mind. I just want to copy what's out there.
No, I think it varies by person. But
God bless you.
I'm so sorry. I think it's this tea. Oh man.
Whoa, it is the tea. Yeah, take another sip. If that's the cause,
almost out.
It's all the hours of podcast chatting.
Well, luckily, I almost had to do another one after this.
Doing that, man, you'd probably get beaten to death.
Mm-hmm. Gotta have my mask on.
No, that actually happened to us. We came out when we came out to Florida. The first day or second day we were here, this was before anything went into lockdown. For Lauren, my friend's birthday, they did a boat ride. You can do like a sailboat around whatever. So we did that. And Annie, one of our people that was with us, the woman was like, okay, make sure, we have sanitizer, wash your hands, whatever. This was like before things were starting to get a little funky. And Annie just cleared her throat. And the woman shot her this look that I was like, oh my God, I was dying laughing. I was like, that's funny. Like, this is the new normal, man. Like, she darted this look back to her, and Annie was like, whoa, I'm fine. It was abrasive, but also necessary. So if we were in public right now, I'd be doing one of these.
You just start slowly backing up.
Out of frame. Is it? Oh, sound's there. Okay. I thought the sound.
I'm having to mute myself so I don't.
She's ridiculous, isn't she? I love that she's been here the whole time. This is gonna.
She just it looks like she's just listening to you, like this.
But you haven't said anything interesting yet. I'm still waiting.
Can't impress her.
Well, this is fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for doing this with me. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of it. This is a really cool thing. I love that you're doing this. It's awesome. It's inspiring me to I don't know, do stuff. Keep motivated. Try new things.
Yeah. I it went away for a little bit, but this has kind of given me, the time to,
To do it.
start. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the beauty of this whole, quarantine. But at the same time, I mean, I talk to people that have already learned 6 languages, read 50 books, and I'm like, I could barely get out of bed. I don't know what the deal is. Like, it's so extreme for everyone, But we've been, staying productive in our own ways. But no, this kind of stuff, I love when people are doing this kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to do, yeah. Motivates you.
Mm-hmm.
Motivates you.
Yep. Well, you have a lot of motivating things that you said, so I appreciate you being on.
Well, thanks for having me, man. It was
Stay,
fun.
yeah, stay safe in Florida, and
Thank
hopefully you
you
see
too.
you in the near future.
Yes, I'm sure we will. We'll see each other again from afar. Thank you so much for having me, buddy.
Thanks, Taylor.
Stay
Bye.
safe.